What's going on, everybody? My name is TJ from Little Star Sports Media Group, host of two shows, the Stoop Hoops, and as well as the entire Empire.
Okay. Now, the one thing I want to ask you about that maybe a lot of people don't, give me your experience with XFL. Let's start odd.
XFL. So it was one of those things where I can remember growing up as a kid back in the early 2000s. It was a cool thing that everybody was talking about, and I remember me and my friends, we were just like, "Yo, what is this thing called the XFL?" Because it's just the X part, and it just seemed like, man, those guys are like bad guys. It's just like so opposite NFL. But when I heard that things were starting again with the league and a fresh new league and a fresh start with everything, me being a sports host, I said, why not? So I originally put my hat out for two teams. I wanted to be a part of the New York media market because it's bigger, and also being in the DMV,
right.
I also wanted to see what was up with that. So I began to reach out, get my feelers out, and start talking to some people, and we started cultivating a dialogue back and forth. And then next thing you know, I was the official team host.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now let's jump away from that. I'm looking at what you got behind you there. You kind of old school there, which is nice.
Yeah.
Tell you what, this is how I know when people know what they're talking about. Tell me about Charles Barkley. What do you know about Charles Barkley, the player?
What I know about Chuck, I got Chuck's autograph over here. Chuck was my guy growing up. Go back there. That's his '93 photo when he with a Nike Sunburst when he won the MVP. Chuck is just my guy. The round mound of rebounds, probably pretty much the most undersized power forward in NBA history. At 6'4", listed at 6'6", he was just super dominant, powerful. His authority when he came down the lane, ever since his days at Auburn, were incredible. And he was just really, really a guy that just really, really spoke his mind. Matter of fact, if I can, I have the original copy of Unchained. Like I said, I'm really a Chuck fan. So a lot of people don't have this where he said that he's basically not a role model for young black kids. And that I always didn't sit well with my parents growing up. But this has never been open before. I just got a whole lot of sports memorabilia here. So yeah, that's my guy. Well, I'm a fan of Chuck.
It's cool that you mentioned his actual height because most people fudge it. The thing that I always thought was funny is they always show that scene when he's walking down the floor in Phoenix and he's walking down next to Danny Ainge. Now Danny Ainge is listed at 6'5", and Chuck's listed at 6'6", and Danny Ainge is at least an inch and a half taller than Chuck is. So I always thought that was pretty cool. But what he was able to do, man, I tell you, like I said, you followed him from Auburn. Man, I caught him that he was the round mounded rebound. And you're like, who is this dude? Like, he can't do what, and he elevates off the floor and you go, man, that big can't do what he did. And then, and see, this is when you start talking about comparisons to people. And I look at, there are two comparisons they make with Zion Williamson, or that they should make with Zion Williamson. There's one, which is Barkley, though I don't think that's fair because he had a little bit more perimeter game later in his career.
Absolutely.
The other one to me is Larry Johnson. And that's the one they seem to miss.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at.
That's a fair assessment. Very fair assessment.
You're looking at somebody that was big but could move, that could play inside and outside. There's a thing, we did a show a number of years ago about the NCAA tournament. We took the last 32 years and we made a 64 team bracket, the winners in the second place. And no matter how we played it out, that UNLV team always won because there wasn't anybody in college that could check Larry Johnson. Now, maybe they couldn't have pros, but in college, there was nobody at that time that if you had him, if you played it team to team. Now, I know it's a bold statement, but think about it.
Team to team. So you're talking about everything that surrounded that with that 90-91 UNLV team. You're absolutely right. So the dimensions, when you're talking about Anderson Hunter, you're talking about Plastic Man, Stacey Augland, you're talking about Greg Anthony, you're talking about LJ. Yeah, pound for pound, it's tough. Now, if we talk about somebody in college sports that could just check in, there's a couple that stand out. But
if you play, and we're talking also the tournament teams too, the teams that came in first and second. You go back to teams, the guys that
Gotcha now.
Right.
Okay.
But again, I think the best one that could have guarded him would have been Plastic Man. That's about my only choice. Maybe some of those guys from some of those Louisville teams, but that's pretty close. But again, that's our opinion. That's what we came up with. But that's what we do. That's we break stuff down and look at it and go,
I think
let you think about something a little bit.
I think Mr. Gordon, with power and athleticism, unfortunately, due to his, his demise, we never got to see what he did as a pro. But I'm talking about raw power and talent. Man, I compare Zion. I had a conversation with somebody about this last week, and I've never seen him actually play because I don't remember him. But doing my research and knowing what he brought to the table, Lenny Bias, just the way he got off the floor, his power, his strength, his athleticism. I see a lot of those comparisons in Zion.
Yep.
So,
yeah. I think that Lenny had a little bit more actual, I don't want to call it skill, but he was more of he had a little bit better handle, a little bit better shooting. I mean, he was one of those guys that you looked at offensively and go, I don't know how we stop him. You just don't know how you stop him. And he could go glass too. And we could do this all day. And I wouldn't mind if we did, to tell you the truth, because you could come up with people all over the place, but Zion is one of those that's an outlier, but there are others that were size for size. Now, again, you don't have any that are 270, 280. That's the different story right there.
Absolutely.
And can still rise like that.
That's definitely true. Definitely true.
Yeah. But again, I mean, there's some cats that could ball. And again, I'm looking a little bit here and there. I'm seeing Shaq. Okay, let me put it this way. If you're looking at that power forward spot, give me, doesn't have to be a top 5. Just give me 3 or 4 guys you go, yeah, I'd start a team with those guys.
Power forwards?
Yeah.
In the league history?
Yeah. Just that you've seen play.
Oh.
Just jump out at you.
Oh, man. Timmy is also Timmy's just gonna be Tim, KG, the mailman, Chuck. And let me get him. See, now everything's positionless, I would say, because everybody's a Swiss Army knife, so it's tough. But we talk about classic power forwards. Let me go back. Let me take it back to somebody in the day. DC, Derek Coleman.
Yep.
DC in his prime.
Everyone forgets about him. Yeah.
Yeah, people sleep on DC. DC, like 90 through 92 DC, hard to come by. 6'10", do it all. That 15-footer was a nice left. That touch, that lefty, he get down the lane, finish on you. And when they brought my man Kenny in, my man Coach Kenny, when Kenny got there with him and Chris Morris, and that is hard.
That team should have done more. Yeah, you're right.
They underachieved. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
I throw another one at you, Rasheed Wallace. He was a bad man.
He was
a bad man.
Another one at 6'10", a lot, 6'11".
And could step out and hit the 3, but his emotions usually got the best of, or sometimes got the best of him. Sometimes it spurred him on, but sometimes it got the best of him. So I'm gonna throw one at you that you may not know, but people will tell you, a guy that, again, you're talking about a guy that maybe didn't go all the way. I can give you 2 of them.
Okay.
Roy Tarpley and Vin Baker.
Oh, my cousin Vinny?
Vin Baker had that 3 or 4 good years and then went away. And Roy Tarpley, if he could have kept himself together, he was tough.
Roy's demons play that hand. Roy could have got the demons in check. Because actually, that Derek Harper, Roy Tarpley, Mark Aguirre, those guys in Dallas, forget all that you've seen with Jason Kidd and Steve Nash, future in Dallas. That old reunion arena in Dallas Mavericks team, they're another ones who just underachieved, and they ended up breaking them all up. And Orlando Blackman too as well was on the roster. But I mean, those guys had talent. They were, absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish up.
As far as Vin Baker just really never had an opportunity to have a bona fide team around him. He caught Ray in Ray's infancy. I don't know if Ray was really built his NBA game by the time Ray was a buck, but if that could have cultivated itself with Vin and Big Dog and Ray, that could have been something special too.
And see, this is where we get to right now. Let's ask this question and get it out the way, because we're talking about teams that didn't get there, but you can mention A, B, C, D. If they could have done that, maybe they could have done that. This would have happened, that would have happened. Maybe another coach, maybe a trade or something like that. When we're looking at the league right now, all we seem to talk about are the teams that are, we're talking about the Lakers. We're talking about the Nets now. Who is that? We've got 2 or 3 or 4 pieces that we can put in there, and maybe if it tweaks just right, you got a shot. Who in the league right now is almost there, but they got to fight the big dogs?
New Orleans.
Okay.
Charlotte.
Okay.
Orlando.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm going to give them another 10 games to see how they figure it out but I think Phoenix got something going. I think they got the right plug and play by getting CP3 there with those young
Yeah.
guys. So I think that's it. And if I can get a fifth one, tough question. Houston starting to come on now.
Houston is looking good, aren't they?
Yeah, Houston.
Yeah.
Houston got the cancers out of the way. So when we took out the beard and got him out of there, now we got a quality mesh of guys that are hungry and want to get it. And I'll be honest with you, them actually getting a 5 now or somebody with some height and Christian Wood, I think was the missing piece when, D'Antoni went through all that small ball stuff. Now that's not going to work in the league. So I think Houston is right there now.
Well, it's something you can win a few games with in the regular season.
Absolutely.
When it comes down to crunch time, you throw Anthony Davis on the floor, you're done.
Absolutely.
You can't do anything about that. Now, a couple of teams that play with a big man who I'm not really sure about, but I know they're close, is Utah and Denver. Because I don't know, but it's just I think with Utah, Mike Conley's got a lead.
And that's the thing. See, I don't know if Utah is ready to have that closer yet because it's not Spidey Mitchell yet. And I definitely Rudy Gobert is not the guy you throw the ball down to get you some points.
Right.
He's a defensive juggernaut. He's going to clean the glass for you. He's going to be that rim stopper, rim protector, but he's not the guy that you throw the ball down and you get a bucket from, i.e. a Shaq. He's just not that guy. And he got a handsome paycheck to say he's not that guy, but hopefully it works out for you. Hopefully it works out for you, Utah.
When that was announced, did you say, really?
I was like, man, listen, I still got some eligibility. If I can get some of this dust off, I might. If we're giving away free money like that, I just it didn't make good sense to me. But
I need to grow another foot, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's it.
But and it's not fair. But and this is a league that has kind of shied away from focusing on the big man. Like you said, you got to be able to shoot the three if you're a big man now, or at least be able to step out and do something. But they went traditional, maybe it's because it's Utah. They went traditional and said, we're going to go give the big rim defender, we're going to give him a big contract. And I said, but at the end of the day, couldn't that money been spent on somebody?
Two people, not just somebody.
Two somebodies, right? Two somebodies, right?
You get two somebodies and a vet on the league minimum for that amount of money. I mean,
right.
It's not the same NBA anymore, Mr. Gordon. I mean, listen. You don't need a rim protector per se. You do need guys who can stop. You need guys who can definitely defend out on the perimeter, but you need scoring. You need scoring. Right. Look at Brooklyn. Brooklyn put all their chips on the table, saying we're going to outscore you night in and night out. We're going to outscore you and do something about it. And that's going to be their go-to this year, unfortunately.
If we can find one guy on the roster to play defense, which they're still searching for,
absolutely,
they can find one guy on the roster they can play some defense. We got a shot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm looking at teams like Milwaukee that is like, okay, we got a guy you can't check.
Mm-hmm.
What you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's today's NBA. Portland, we got a guy you can't stop. What you going to do? And that's where it looks like, okay, let's go back to, again, some of those pictures. I believe off to the one side, I see a little bit of that's an all-star game. I thought it was Houston Rockets. Look, it's an all-star game. But the idea of
that's Kobe and Mike in the 2003 game, and then there's Mike behind me when he hit the shot in Cleveland, and then Mike there. That Gatorade towel up there, Scottie Pippen's Gatorade towel from Chicago '95.
All right,
John Wall's back there. I got a lot of guys on the wall, tickets and games and places I've been to, and there's my man Coach Ewing, Patrick Ewing over here. I'm the Georgetown host as well, so that's my guy.
Well, it's a good thing you're blocking the Jordan shot because I still have never seen that shot.
Oh, this shot right here?
I'm Cleveland. No, I don't want to see it. I don't see it. That's okay. I'm a Cleveland fan. I've never seen that shot.
Yeah, you've seen that shot. I'm gonna tell you how much you've seen that shot. You've seen that shot on Elo, and then you've seen it the following year on Gerald Wilkins. That's how much you've seen that shot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you why. I was working a job, and it was just a job that I didn't like, but I had to be there on that day when he hit the shot over Elo. So I got called. I mean, they had a TV set up and everything. I got called away from the TV to finish a sale we were working on. And when I came back, everybody was yelling and screaming. So now, whenever that shows up, I either put it on mute or I change the channel. I've yet to see him actually take. I've seen him finish the shot. Right. I've seen him jump up and doing the fist bump. I've never seen him actually taking the shot yet. So, and I hope the rest of my life And I've also never seen Art Modell hoist the trophy in Baltimore with the Super Bowl. I've never seen that. Yeah, that tells you how stupid of a fan I am.
I was a pup, and I seen that. I was sitting on the floor in our family room, and I was like, "There's no way this is gonna happen." And I was sitting there, and I remember my pops was sitting on the couch. He was like, "It's Mike. Watch how this about to go down."
Yeah.
Inbound, he took that hard dribble, pulled up. Boom. I looked at my dad. He said, "What I tell you, boy?" I was like, "This is incredible," and I was sold on Mike ever since.
He's the truth. You know, I picked him up. I picked up North Carolina the couple years before he was there, right? So then you see, because that was basically all you got. You got North Carolina, you got UCLA, and maybe DePaul. Those are the only games you got to see most of the time, or who they were playing. Maybe some Louisville. That was about it.
Right.
And they were showing, ACC games. So he's playing. I want to say it was Wake Forest or somebody, or North Carolina before he got there. So right. I'm watching North Carolina. I'm going, okay, they're pretty good. Dean Smith knows what he's talking about. Then they got to the tournament and all that, and then they show Worthy, and like I've been reading about Worthy when I was reading about Sleepy Floyd before that. So okay, the two kids from the same school, Gastonia, North Carolina. Like, okay, right. Cool. And then they bring in Perkins. Okay, I like the way this is going. And we're gonna put this Jordan guy out. It's like, where's he gonna play? What's he gonna do? He can't add anything to this team. They're already locked, right? And then you hear Worthy say it later. It's like, yeah, I was the best player on that team for about 3 weeks. He's like, we knew, and Worthy's the number 1 pick in the draft that next year. He said, we knew this kid is something. So yeah, that's and that's my era growing up with them and Houston and all those cats. Man, I had a chance to talk to Eric Davis, who was the captain of the Phi Slamma Jamma team.
Yeah.
Didn't play a lot, but he was the captain of the team.
Yeah.
And he said, look, I know the stories, and I know that you hear from other people, but it's not, you don't get it. Ben Anders was the best player on that team.
Yeah, almost definitely. And you can look at the
doc. With the documentary, right.
You can tell you in 30 for 30. No disrespect to Clyde, no disrespect to Hakeem, but Benny was a problem.
Yeah.
Benny had inside, outside game. He could fly. Benny could fly, and Benny was tough, and he was strong. And you just listen to I listened to my older cousins and my uncles talk about those days, because like I said, just not being around to understand most of it, but they said Benny was a problem. Benny.
Oh yeah.
Benny's one of those ones, man. There's stories about him, and we just interviewed Shea Cotton last week.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many guys that were supposed to be the next ones, and it just didn't come together, unfortunately.
And it is a lot more than just putting your stamp on it and saying, "Here I am." Shea's another one. Another boy from USC that his name just dropped out of my head. I'll come back with it in a minute. But there are a lot of guys like that.
Maybe Jordan the Harold Miner.
Oh no, I'm not going there, but a little bit after that. But it'll pop to me when we're
OJ Mayo. Talking about OJ Mayo.
No, in between those two. Like I said, it usually is in my head, and I just can't. He actually had a decent career. He played a little bit in the league, then he played overseas, and like I said, it just dropped out of my head. There was another special that was on one of those shows, but I knew him before that. Anyhow, but there are a lot of guys like that. These go, man, what happened? Not necessarily what happened, but understanding it's just not being the best player. There's more to it than that.
Absolutely.
And that's the fun part about going back and looking at stuff. It's like, was Chuck Person as good as Charles Barkley? For what Chuck Person did, he wasn't bad. Now
the rifleman was okay.
The rifleman, yeah.
The rifleman was definitely okay. When you put him together with him, Reggie, Vern Fleming, a couple of those guys, they had a solid core in those early Indiana years before they got to be, the Davis boys and Mark Jackson and Reggie. But those
Michael Williams was the guard, right? Yeah. Right. And the problem is you bump up against that ceiling too many times. Someone says we got to make changes, so you got to go out and you got to flip it around a little bit. And can you make it any better? Well, that's a tough thing to do. Like you said, to bring the Davis boys, did that make it better? I don't know.
They got tougher. They got
you
tougher.
got tougher, but you lost something, but you gained something. But that's the nature of the beast.
And they were complementary pieces to help out Rick Smits, especially go against those Knick teams when you got arguing in Oakley. So I think it was okay.
Right. Yeah, but could you have done it more offensively another way around? That's the thing. Because could your guards have been able to go against Greg Anthony, against Derek Harper, against those guys? Could you have done it that way? There's so many things you can talk about, make it fun. That's what's cool about this. There's always something. The one thing I did a little something the other day, and I said, what if, I'm looking at Shaq behind you, what if they didn't trade Chris Webber for Penny? What if they kept Chris Webber?
Hey, Mr. Gordon, I'm gonna tell you something, Freddie. And I was watching, I was doing some work in New Orleans about 2 weeks ago on an NFL special I was shooting for Drew Brees as a conclusion of his career, because he hasn't officially announced he's retiring, but we see the writing on the wall. So I was doing some film work actually there during the last game. And while I was in the airport to fly back, I seen this special, and I think it was on NBA TV, long story short, about the impact of Tim Duncan and David Robinson together. That would have probably been more powerful than that. Yes. If you think about the quality years that Chris Webber was making noise with Juwan Howard when they were Bullets together. So only imagine what could have happened if Chris Webber and Shaquille O'Neal, that high-low, that in and out, oh my God. You could have kept Scott Skiles around. You could have kept any guard around. I could have played guard for them.
That's my point. Right.
That dominant impact would have been like nothing we'd ever seen, because I just sit there and look at how dominant Tim Duncan and David Robinson was with somebody like Vinny Del Negro or Avery Johnson.
Right.
My God. So,
I mean, as a point guard, here are my options. 1, 2. As long as I can get the ball across half court, my job is easy.
Absolutely.
And then you got D3 on one side, and then you got, Nick Anderson on the other side.
Absolutely. You could have kept Scott Skiles.
Yeah, you could have kept anybody at that point, right? And Scott Skiles wasn't bad. So
Scott Skiles no slow weak. He's not Penny, but he's still not bad as an NBA consummate guard, if that's what you want.
Right. So those are the things. Look, I appreciate you talking about this stuff, because these are the things. I like these unstructured. Let's just riff on it and see what happens.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think? That was one of the. I don't like doing the worst thing, but the moves that were made that maybe shouldn't have been made, and that's one of them. I think there are a couple of that come to mind. It's like, I wonder if they had a chance to do this again, would they have done it again?
Orlando would have kept Chris Webber.
Yeah.
Orlando would have kept Chris Webber.
I think that's a big one. Yeah.
Career was longer. Let's be clear. And this was, I got in a comment. I don't know, it was my barber. Might have been a guest on my show. But one thing I said, oh yeah, I was talking to Speedy Claxton. Speedy Claxton agreed with me. He said, okay, this is what we said. If it wasn't for Shaq and Kobe, them 2000s Kings teams would have been NBA champions. We're talking Chris Webber, Bobby Jackson, White Chocolate, Peja, Hiru, Doug Christie, Lawrence Thunderberg. Deep is deep. I just named 8 people that could get busy on any roster in the 2000s.
Right.
So imagine all that with no Shaq and Kobe, or maybe just Shaq but no Kobe, or Kobe no Shaq. Oh my God, the Kings would have won a couple in a row. Oh my God.
I just talked to Lawrence about 2 months ago. Yeah. He's like,
No, that's who I was speaking to. I spoke to Lawrence, because Lawrence is on our show as well. He's on season 4.
Good guy.
He's an amazing guy. Oh my God. Yeah. The things that he does in the community and his book writing and his advocacy, and he's just a good, strong brother to know, man. And he's a good dude. But me and him got into that. And he said, yeah, absolutely. If it wasn't for Shaq and Kobe, we'd have got a couple rings. And he's right. They were low.
He's right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And see, that's where, when we look back at that and we look at what's up now, you're going, who's that team that's getting shut out now? And I will say Milwaukee from a couple years ago. That was a team I thought had a chance to get there. But, right now it's like, if it's not for the Lakers, who else?
We talking this season right now?
Or just in general, the last few years, yeah.
Last few years? Oh boy. You know, it's interesting enough to that first year, 2018, if LeBron would have stayed healthy before he went down, they just shut it down for the whole season. It'd be interesting where they would have finished.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I do think there's certain things that you see now where guys are just staying around too long, and I guess Washington got enough of it, so Washington decided to blow up, which I thought was one of the better backcourts that we've seen in the last 5-6 years with Beal and Wall. I think Dame Lillard and CJ is another situation that how much longer do you hold on hoping something's going to catch fire, or do you
Right.
really surround them with enough people, some quality talent? So those are the teams that I look at in the last couple of years that have been right there, but just couldn't get the job done. Here's one for you. I think OKC bet the farm too early with the big three that they had.
Yep.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on that one.
Well, I think what happened was they were all interested in being, and this is just speculation, but they're all interested in saying, I want to run the show. Mm-hmm. And here's my correlation with that. You go back to one of the Dallas teams that had Jimmy Jackson, Jamal Mashburn, and Jason Kidd on it.
Yes.
You had three guys that were the alphas, and they just couldn't coexist. They couldn't. I mean, they should have, because they weren't playing in the same spot. That team should have been dynamic.
Oh my God.
But
you had a 1 through 3 that nobody could stop.
That nobody could check either one of them, right? But they just couldn't coexist, and that's what I think happened to OKC. It's like, I want the ball. Harden's like, I want to play. I don't want to come off the bench. I want to play. Well, you're doing a great job. I don't want to be coming off the bench. I want to play. So I think they were forced internally to say, what are we going to do? Because if we can move one, we can get 3 more parts. If we can move another, we can get maybe 4 more parts. And they just didn't handle it to where they brought in a replacement or 2 or 3 to replace what they lost. So when Durant goes, which I didn't think was going to happen, to tell you the truth, when Durant goes, first of all, you can't replace Durant.
No, not at all.
But you can replace the production if you do it right. And then after that, it's like,
how do you replace that type of production? I'm curious.
Well, I'm not saying with one guy. It's got to be like 3 or 4 people.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can replace anybody's production, but it depends on how many minutes in a game you get to play. Gotcha. It's like you could replace what Jordan did, but not with one guy, not with 2 guys, maybe not with 3 guys. Yeah, but it can be done. It's just a matter of how you're going to do it. Because no matter what, most teams score the same amount of points, no matter who's on the team. You don't have a team so good that they're averaging 147 points. It's usually in the same range. So how do you get that production? What do you give up to do it?
I think they didn't have the right type of Zen master in OKC. And obviously,
right,
you shipped Scott Brooks to Washington, and he couldn't get Beal and Wall to get the right type of production.
Right.
They had a good year in 2016 before the injuries just really started kicking John Wall's behind. But I really think you just got to have the right coach. To give you a perfect example, because I really look back to when Tibbs had Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, Joakim Noah, Kirk Heinrich. They had a top-notch squad as well. That should have been a lot more production than you really got from those young guys at that point in their career. The energy and the way they got up and down the floor. And you look at, I guess, really look at what Jimmy Butler gave you post-Chicago days. Like, there was something there. What happened?
Right.
You had the youngest MVP in league history. What happened, other than the fact that you rode him to the ground and you killed him, because Lord knows in Chicago they beat him up. But there was more there. Then why don't we have more production out of that Chicago roster, that Chicago team?
Is it more external pressure than expectations? We got to do this, we got to do that, instead of just letting them gel and play?
That's a great question. You know what? I don't even know if I can answer that right now. I got to put some thought into that one. Because you're right. I see that, but then I see teams like those early 2000 Lakers teams where they had a lot of great players. You had the Fishes, and you had the Rick Foxes, and you had the Kobe's and the Shaqs and the B. Shaws, and the list just goes on. Horace Grant came over there. Like, it was just a lot of names that were good facilitators, good role players, but actually somewhat had a little bit of a starring role in past teams and even their collegiate teams. And Phil Jackson, being Phil Jackson, was able to, I'm going to put it to the point where he was able to monetize things correctly because he did it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the lure of Phil Jackson. Personally, people ask me this all the time. I don't think Phil Jackson is a great coach, X and O wise. What he does is he knows how to, do that Zen master thing, gets the most out of his talent. But then again, too, I question that as well because all you got to do is tell guys, okay, I need you to do this and do that and be willing to do it. But how much coaching do you got to really do with Mike and Scotty or Phil and Shaq, Kobe and Shaq?
Well, I'll put it this way. If you were to sit down and try and get the inner workings of the triangle offense out of Phil Jackson, I'm willing to say he would go, talk to Tex.
Tex. You got to talk to Tex Winter.
I don't really know. And now he may not admit that, but he's like, that's not what I was here for. Mm-hmm. That's what he did. My job was to put them in the right spot, make them understand what they had to understand, and keep everybody on the same page. Like you said, and you brought it up. I don't think he was a great X's and O's, but he didn't have to be. He had enough sense to say, Tex thinks this will work, let's run it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you rotate in Scotty and Michael, but in that you rotate in, Horace, you rotate in Ron Harper, you bring in Rodman, you go Kerr, you go BJ Armstrong. It's a revolving door, but the key is you've got those two and somebody to run the offense.
Absolutely.
I can't even think of who the point guard was on that team. I know who was listed as the point guard, but I can't tell you who was really the point guard because I don't think you even needed one or had one.
So, in the later 90s, it was Harper and with Randy Brown, I guess, with the guards. Earlier years was Paxson and BJ, but Scotty running the ball.
Yeah, but as I say, as far as running the point.
Scotty. It was Scotty.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, yeah, that's
you had point guard sized people, but they weren't running the point, So, but they understood that, and that's what they did. Mm-hmm. So, and there are a couple of teams like that. You go, like the Toronto team from a couple of years ago. It's like, I can't figure out how that team was able to do what they did other than Kawhi, but Kawhi didn't score 80 points a game. But they did what they did because someone, and again, this is after Dwayne Casey was let go 3 days or 2 days before he became coach of the year. Now, who makes that move?
Toronto.
And it works.
Toronto.
Yeah, but who makes that move and it works? That's the part that I couldn't figure out.
There's a lot of guys capitalizing on what some like Nick Nurse did it, Steve Kerr did it because that was Mark Jackson's
team, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been done. It's been done.
But I mean who as a front office person says, you know what? I think we look pretty good. I think we've got one of the best coaches in the league. Everyone else is going to say he's the best coach, but you know what? I want this guy that no one's heard of to coach instead. Nick Nurse. I want to bring Steve Kerr out of the broadcast booth. What?
That sounds crazy.
Yeah. Sounds crazy, but it's worked. Pat Riley came out of the broadcast booth, so, something's got to work.
Pat Riley's a different bird. Pat Riley's a different bird. I can't. That's another one. One. Now, Riley could coach X's and O's. Riley was a phenomenal player from his Kentucky days, to his pro days. But he had talent that he really managed and made them go. Because here's the thing. Those days when you got the Celtics and you got the up-and-coming Pistons, and even Philly in the late 80s was tough. Chicago was coming around. Like, the league was a tougher league, and he maximized what he got out of his stars and his quality role players. And they were quality role players at that. Coop, quality role player. McAdoo, quality role player. Byron Scott, quality role player. Michael Thompson, Clay's Pops, quality role player. Like, and then you throw in AC Green. You throw in Big Game James. You throw in the captain. You throw in Magic. Like, oh my
Byron,
God.
yeah.
Yeah, like I said.
See, the thing about that team is like, okay, it doesn't happen now. You had 4 number 1 overall picks on that team.
Yes.
But you also had McAdoo was number 2.
Yes.
Byron, who was number, I think, 4 or 5.
4 or 5, yep.
I mean, you just kept rolling, and you had to keep them all happy.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention when you rolled in Jim Jones, who was a star in Cleveland. You've got in this guy and that guy, and they're all sitting behind Rambis.
Rambis, yep, that's another one.
You're like, we're going to start Rambis instead of you. Like, but do you know what McAdoo? Yep, we're going to put Rambis in.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it worked. Yeah, cool. we've got it all. Landisberg. I mean,
Yep.
David Rivers. They just kept bringing people in. It's like, go in and shine. Here's your role. Here's your thing. Go ahead and do it. Yeah, I didn't mean to disparage Pat Riley. I'm just saying that's a guy that came out of the broadcast booth.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. It's like he knew what he was doing before he got there.
Most definitely.
You know, and same with Steve Kerr. But you go, I'm going to replace Mark Jackson with Steve Kerr. Why would I do that? You know, so it's interesting that you look at it. You know, all these moves that people make, some of them work, some of them don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I said, do me a favor. Give me a take on what your show is and how people look at what you do, or at least what you want them to look, how they want to look at what you do.
I'll start with the entire empire. So it's me, myself, my co-host, my partner in crime, Kev P, Kevin Philpotts, and the number 2 pick in the 1991 draft, Mr. Chibbs himself, Mr. Kenny Anderson. And what we do is we look at everything New York Knicks and Brooklyn Nets basketball. And Kenny being a net lifer himself. You know, Kenny's a family friend. So, you know, I had the opportunity. I interviewed Kenny for my other show, the Stoop Hoops. And we just had just like us, I had a great organic conversation. And, you know, me and my partner said, why don't we just talk to Kenny every week and recap on Nets and Knicks basketball and call it the entire empire? And we pitched it to Kenny, gave him a whole proposal. We did it business-wise, pitched it to him, even though you're a family friend, and he took it. And we love it. And then we reached out to different networks in the tri-state area, media outlets, and they were like, y'all gonna talk about what? With who? Kenny Anderson? Where do we sign? And I mean, it's been a great thing. See, Kenny's a legend coming out of Left Rack City, Queens. Mr. Chibbs, slated at 6'1", but he may be all but a 5'11", scrawny kid coming out of Georgia Tech, but made a name for himself. Him, Chris Morris, the late great Drazen Petrovic, playing also with Rick Mahorn, DC, those early net teams, Kendall Gill, they came in with a vengeance. And, you know, he made a name for himself. Nobody could check him. Nobody could keep him in front of him. It was hard to. And I think, like we talked about with him, he was the forerunner for, you know, great guards being Nets. So now we look at, after him is Stephon Marbury. And now we got Kyrie Irving. So Kenny was a precursor. We love Coach. And we've had a great opportunity doing that. The other show is the Stoop Hoops, where we talk about everything like you were doing the Stoop. You know, me and my co-host got New York roots, New York ties. So that's what we used to do growing up, is just sit on the stoop and talk about, yo, who's nice, who's not nice, who's trash, who's not good, who need to step their game up. And so we do it with special co-hosts. We've had everybody from, of course, Coach Kenny Anderson. We had Danielle Marshall. We've had Shamika Holdsclaw. We've had Speedy Claxton, CJ Watson, Shea Cotton, Rashard McCants, Patrick Ewing Jr., David Noel. I'm trying to think all the names. But we just have players and come on and talk. And we let their guard down. You know, it's unedited, unfiltered. So you say what you really want to say. And it's been awesome. And as we continue to grow with that brand, I'm looking forward to it. Season 4 is awesome. It's great. And we launch on February 1st, Monday. Excited.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll make sure we get our end of this cut up so we can get it out there so people can see it.
Definitely. So let me ask you a question, Mr. Gordon, if I may. If I gave you your top 10-man roster, we give you a 10-man roster all the time, who would be on that roster for you? If you could pick from any team, any era, any person, 10-man roster, you the coach for
okay.
all NBA.
Well, if I'm the coach, it's different.
Okay.
All right, let's throw it out there. You got to look at, you start at the center. You start with Kareem, and you throw Olajuwon with those two. So those are my center. Olajuwon's kind of my Swiss Army knife. We go Kareem and Olajuwon. Okay. Your guards, you're going to go with Magic. That's going to be my first one. Mm-hmm. And then you got to put Mike in there. So what's that, 4, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to scoot big. KG is in there. Okay. Because KG can play it all. Mm-hmm. All right, so he can do it all. Then you're going to look at a little defense, a little offense, a little defense. We'll get into that person in a bit, because there are a lot of ways I can go there. Depends on how I fill it out. You're looking at you got to have a shooter. You got to have a shooter, and you got to have an agitator. He may not be the best one, but he fits on my team. Reggie. Reggie fits on my team because Reggie's gonna make sure you go. Mm-hmm. Reggie's going to make sure you go. And there's not much else you can do about that. You're looking at you can slide Kobe in there because you can put him someplace. And then, geez, what's that? 6 or 7?
7.
7. Okay.
More slots.
Probably gonna go. Again, it's gonna skew big. Probably go Nowitzki just because again you got a shooter that's gonna be tough to stop. You know, and we're gonna be an offensive laden team. I got to find a defender here someplace. I need another guard. The glove.
Good call.
When you get the glove out there, we got to have somebody that can shut everybody down. So we go there, and then again, it's a weird team. But then I go. Was that 8 or 9?
That's 9. Y'all one more spot.
That's 9. I go KG.
You got KG. KG's already.
I'm sorry. Durant. Go Durant. My bad. So I may be top heavy, but my guards can take care of business. And then I got enough guys playing down low that are interchangeable. They can step out a little bit.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, but you ask me again tomorrow, I'll probably come up with another 10. So who knows how that works out? Because it's so hard. You know, we were going to do something and we haven't done it yet. Pandemic messed it up. We were going to do. You know, they did the NBA 50. We were going to flip around to do the NBA 75. So we were going to up those 25s. And say, okay, do we yank out a couple of guys and who do we add in? And then I started thinking about it, like, we're better to do 100 than 75 because it's going to be too tough. Because in the last 30 years, you know, you got another 25, 30 you got to put in there. And no offense to the guys that played before, but somebody like and the Knicks fans are going to kill me on this.
Dominique wasn't even in the top 50. That's what people don't realize.
Exactly.
Dominique not in the top 50. This is crazy to me.
Right. And you look and you say, Dave DeBusschere.
Yes. And
not that DeBusschere wasn't vital to what he did, but I don't think he's a top 50 player. Even in his era, I don't think that puts him there. Yeah. And I also take out one of my favorite players of all time. I take out Pete Maravich.
I don't know if I agree with that one, Mr. Gordon.
Only because I say this with love, because he's one of my favorite players. He did not have that NBA type of career. He did not have that really unbelievable NBA career. That's me.
So the next 50 is going to be KD, Carmelo, Bron, AI,
Wade,
Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Yao Ming,
right. Yeah.
This is why I said Steph Curry. Bar none. One of the guys that ushered in a new style basketball was Pistol Pete Maravich.
Yes, I agree.
Because we're not koozying it no more. We're not coming down with a half-court set. We're getting up and down the floor. It's flashy, it's fun, it's creative, it's innovative. So I don't know if I take Pistol Pete out. He may be a back 90.
Borderline.
He's one of back 90. If I'm going from 90 to 100. He may get that 97 spot. Like, really what I was going to do, and me and my coach talked about that, we taking everybody out. And we're going to make our own 100.
Yeah, right.
Based upon, like, let's really do it. So, yeah, we're going to throw Dominique in there. Like, we really going to make it happen.
And the thing about Pistol, look, I will watch a Pistol highlight any day of the week. Yeah. When I was growing up, but I think impact in what he did in the league, and I would take Bill Walton out too. Only because he had that 2 good seasons in Portland and then very little until he got to that last year with Boston. And again, not to dismiss what he did when he did it, but we're talking about an NBA career. He didn't have a full NBA career.
No, I think people with Walton, they ride his collegiate wave and think that translates to his NBA.
Same with Pistol, right.
Yeah.
That's my take. You know, that's fair. But you know, you can say somebody like, nah, I'm just going to throw a name because it kind of is that the SEC thing. You go, who had a better professional career, Pistol Pete or Dan Issel? You know, you'd say, well, Dan Issel, right? So Dan Issel's not sniffing the top 50,
not at all,
right? So again, when you say it's the Naismith Hall of Fame, Pistol Pete definitely. When you say it's the NBA Hall of Fame, and I love the guy, but no, he's not. If you have an NBA Hall of Fame, he's not the NBA Hall of Fame. But again, that's not to say that what he could have done, that's something. But what he did do, that's a little bit different story. But again, if I'm flipping around and I see a Pistol highlight, I'm watching, or the full game, I'll watch it, without a doubt. You know. But you mentioned that, and there are those guys that the shoulda, couldas. You mentioned Mark Aguirre earlier. There's a man that's a career that should have been, and it just didn't get all the way there.
He left when he left out of DePaul. He had a lot of steam behind him. He went to Dallas, and it was a slow go at first. And then he picked up in Dallas, enough that he picked up to become trade bait to Detroit. And then he serviced Detroit adequately enough.
He did what he was supposed to do, right?
He did what he was supposed to do. He was serviceable in Detroit, and he did what he needed to do to get them over the hump to win those back-to-back titles. So I don't think Mark Aguirre, if you think about when he's coming out of college, was supposed to be one of those guys, and he really wasn't.
Right.
He was a solid
really
NBA player. He do we call him a role player?
But to be drafted that high, and be thought that highly of, that's the thing. He should have been a little bit more. Not to say what he did wasn't bad. I look at it like you say he ran off the steam from coming out of college. Corliss Williamson. Corliss Williamson was supposed to be a bad man, big nasty.
My God, nasty, yes, he did.
But
him and Scottie and all those guys,
right?
They took all that steam coming.
But instead of flipping around saying I'm too big to be guarded by small guys, and I'm too good outside to be guarded by big guys, they flipped it around and said, well, you can't guard a small guy and you can't guard a big guy. So that's where he got in trouble.
Fair enough.
His offense didn't overcome his defense, right?
Well, fair enough. Absolutely.
Other than what Barkley did, it's like,
that's fair. That's adequate.
But but you can. Oh man, there are so many players you can have that kind of conversation about, and not again. And I'm sure you talk to Kenny, he's going to say there were some guys in the league that can ball. We knew it, but maybe their coach didn't let them ball. Maybe this happened. Maybe that happened. And you go,
oh yeah.
Who's he going to say? Because he's going to come up because he was out there. He's going to come up with a completely different list than I did.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's all about sometimes the system. If the system is not conducive to your skill set, you're gonna fizzle out. And the next thing you know, you're in Israel somewhere. You're in Turkey somewhere.
Right.
Because you just weren't in the right system, given your skill set, or you just wasn't utilized. Or sometimes just guys are not given enough time. And it's unfortunate. There's about 10 guys right now. I got an all NBA team sitting at home team that's amazing that could probably go against any roster in the league right now. You think about it. Gerald Green is sitting at home. Jamal Crawford is still sitting at home. Dion Waiters is sitting at home. Michael Beasley is sitting at home. Lance Stevenson is sitting at home. And I can just keep going. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is sitting at home. He's Frank Kaminsky sitting at home. There's a lot of guys sitting at home.
I think he just signed.
Who?
Yeah.
Kaminsky just signed?
Kaminsky. I think he just signed with I saw him on the box score with somebody, and I forget who it was. But that's like in the last couple of days or something.
Yeah, it was recent. Okay, because like I said, but the other guys like Gerald Green, Dion Waiters, Michael Beasley, Lance Stevenson, those guys, Jamal Crawford still wants to play in the league. Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
Guys still put some numbers up in the league just sitting at the crib. So it's interesting.
And it's funny how it works out. Like you said, it's where are you? And you mentioned Petro in New Jersey, right? Well, what happened in Portland? There are guys that are in the wrong spot for what they do, and they get discovered someplace else. Jermaine O'Neal in Portland ends up, of course, he was only 12 years old when they brought him in, but still, by the time he gets to Indiana, it's like now he can ball. So, who? And this is where you say, I got to run here in a minute because I got another show to do. Sorry,
me as well.
But when you're the GM and you say if you're a good GM.
Right.
And we know there are good GMs and bad GMs. You look around the league and go, this guy can do it, but he's not on our team. Who thought to say, all right, we're going to bring in Chauncey. We're going to bring in Rasheed Wallace, and we're going to put them on a team, and then we're going to get there. And we're going to get Ben Wallace as a free agent. This is what we're going to do. Who thought to bring in Chauncey Billups after he bounced around a few times before that? And build a team around him. That's a man with an eye for talent. I see what's going on. I'm going to take a chance on Sheedy. We're going to go from there. There's got to be that guy out there.
And a frail Rip Hamilton and throw him in the mix, and then bring in another frail Tayshaun
right.
to see if it works.
Right. Exactly. How can you put those two teams on? Who are they going to guard? Well, Tayshaun can guard anybody. Really? No, he can't. Yep. We just post him up at will. No, you can't. Okay. We're going to rip off of every screen that's ever been set ever in the history of the basketball game.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to go from there. Yet that's still the same GM that drafted Darko Milicic.
Number two.
So
I had how many first ballot Hall of Famers out of that class? He's the worst part of one of the greatest draft classes of all time. You could argue him. You could argue that one, 96 to 84, and even 2000 and there's another one I want to say 2005, 2003, 96 and 84, and he is number two in 2003.
Yeah. Now what's gonna this? I do this, and I did a video. I updated it a couple weeks ago. NBA draft, the history of the NBA draft lottery, and only 3 players drafted number 1 have won a championship with the team that drafted them originally.
Okay, say this again. Now say this again.
Only 3 players drafted number 1 overall since the lottery in 1985 have won a championship with the team that drafted them.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
No, because that was 84. So Ewing was 85. That was the first one.
Okay, so not Hakeem.
No, not Hakeem. Hakeem was in the open draft.
Oh wow. David Robinson.
You already mentioned 2 of them. David Robinson.
David Robinson's one.
David Robinson.
So how many more I got? 2 more to pick up?
2. Mm-hmm.
That won a chip with the original team. I think he won chips. Oh, I'm drawing a blank.
Okay. So Robinson gets hurt, and then San Antonio goes 26 and 58 or whatever it was. They get Timmy Duncan.
Yeah.
So you can argue that Robinson wouldn't have won without Duncan. You can argue that. I don't know, but you can argue that. And then all the number 1s that Cleveland shipped away after LeBron left, they end up with Kyrie. And you can argue that Cleveland wouldn't have won, Kyrie wouldn't have won that ring if LeBron hadn't come back. You can argue it.
Nah, Kyrie was. They were
so
terrible.
3
when Kyrie was on his own.
Yeah, right. So three number 1s. Lottery picks overall since 1985. And I don't have the number in my head. I wrote it down, how many total lottery picks there were. But you figure there were 7 to 14, depending upon what year. 16.
Yeah.
16 and 35 years.
Yeah.
So that tells you, what the lottery really means and really what it means to go get a guy. So Chauncey's a lottery pick. They picked him up later. Rasheed was a lottery pick. They got him later. Rip was a lottery pick. They got him later. That's how you do it. But, that's it. Well, like I said, I got another show to do. I appreciate you being on, man. This was great. Let's circle back and do it again.
Absolutely.
Oh man, we'll put together that all-time 100 because we were working on it, but it's nice that we have other people working on it too. So let's circle back and try and work on that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy. But before we go, where can people find you? Make sure we got all your stuff together.
Make sure you check me out at the Stoop Hoops on Instagram and Twitter. You can also check on the show. Hit up the YouTube channels, the Stoop Hoops, and also the entire Empire. And if you want to follow me and see all the hosting and the teams that I work with, it's at Instagram and Twitter. TJ, you ready?
All right, TJ. Appreciate you, man.
All right, Mr. Gordon. Thank you, man.
We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Thanks.